Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Odin's Movie Blog podcast. I am the critic who is a cynic, and on today's episode, I'm going to be discussing my top favorite 15 films of 2017. So before I get to my list, I have to talk about some honorable mentions. These are movies that I really enjoyed. These are movies that I had a great experience in the theater with, but didn't quite crack my top 15 of the year. The first one on the list is Dunkirk. Dunkirk is another excellent Christopher Nolan film. This guy truly is a masterclass. He knows how to make excellent films, and I thoroughly enjoyed it a lot. I did think it dragged sometimes throughout the film. Sometimes it was a little hard to follow what was going on, and so because of that, it doesn't quite make it onto my list. Another honorable mention is the movie Coco. Coco was actually a huge surprise for me. I went in with actually low and tempered expectations, but I came out of it very pleasantly surprised and really enjoying the film overall. It made me cry. It had so many different emotions to it, and also there is an excellent twist in the movie where you think the movie's going in a certain direction, and the trailers make it seem like it's going in a certain direction, but then they twist it on you, and it's just done so well, and it's one of those movies that I thoroughly enjoyed. But once again, it was a great film. Didn't quite make it onto my list. Another honorable mention would be War for the Planet of the Apes. This is the third in the Caesar trilogy. Andy Serkis again brings it to this character. I really do wish that he would get nominated and recognized for the work that he did in this franchise, because he does such an excellent job with these movies, and I am very excited to see his work as a director. He came out with the movie Breathe this year, and it was very well done, so I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. But War for the Planet of the Apes was not my favorite of the trilogy. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is probably still my favorite, and so because of that, doesn't quite make it onto the list. Another one to mention is Megan Levy. Megan Levy tells the story of a female soldier who bonds with a bomb-smithing dog, and the relationship that they have, the origins, the beginning, all the trials and tribulations that they go through, and how eventually she's trying to bring him out of the army so that she can bring him home with her. And it's a really beautiful story. Definitely had me in tears. And as an animal lover, it's something that I truly connected with, and it was a really great film. Thank You for Your Service is another one. It's one that talks about and makes a commentary on the things that our soldiers go through, not only overseas, but also when they come back home, and how so many of them are left helpless, with very little help from the government, and sometimes just very little respect from the people around them. And it's a movie that was interesting because when the Rotten Tomatoes score first came out, it started off at a kind of rotten pace, and then slowly the reviews kept getting better and better and better, and then eventually I think it plateaued around 80%, and it ended up being a certified fresh movie. And going into it, I had those expectations going in, and I ended up really enjoying the film overall. Another one is The Big Sick. The Big Sick is another film that I went in with kind of tempered expectations. It was very pleasantly surprised. It was a beautiful, beautiful film that tells this love story, a true life love story, and the trials and tribulations that they go through. It's definitely a movie I would recommend people going to see. And the last honorable mentions on my list would be Novitiate. Novitiate is actually a controversial film. It talks about a group of nuns back before Vatican II and what they had to go through and the various processes that were in place at that time. And then it even goes all the way to and after Vatican II and all the different implementations of, or rather changes within church law when it comes to religious sisters, and how that had an effect on these women. And it talks about the effect afterwards. There's some text after the movie that breaks down how many nuns left the church, left their calling as a religious sister after Vatican II. And it does the story in such a way where it's not against the church, it's not for the church, it's this nice balance in between, and it's actually a beautifully done film, and the acting is superb, and it talks about a story that I feel like a lot of people can relate to, especially since it's such a real story, and it's a story that you could look at and say, you know what, there were probably a lot of women that went through this during this time within the church, and it's definitely one that I think is worth checking out for sure. So those are all my honorable mentions. Again, there's plenty of other movies that I have not seen, so if there's one that's missing from my list that you think should be on here, please let me know in the comments. But I will say that there were some movies like Call Me By Your Name, Shape of Water, which I've heard excellent things about, but just haven't had a chance to see yet. So my list possibly will change. But as of now, I looked through all the movies of the year, and these were my top 15 movies of the year. So starting off at number 15 is going to be a very interesting one because it technically came out in 2016. And that's the reason why it's number 15 on my list, because I saw it in theaters in 2017, and if it didn't come out in 2016, technically, it would have been probably in the top 3 of my list for the year, and that movie is Your Name. Your Name is an excellent, excellent anime film by a director who I've seen several movies of his since then, and this guy knows how to make truly beautiful animation. If you've never seen Your Name, I highly recommend that you go out and try and find it. Definitely buy it on Blu-ray. It's such a beautiful film, and I would even recommend, as someone who does not know Japanese, just sitting through the film, listening to the Japanese, reading the English subtitles, there are just so many choices that are made and so many jokes that are made that I think just would not translate in the English language if it was being spoken. And it's a truly beautiful film. So I definitely highly recommend going to see the movie Your Name. Another great movie at number 14 would be the movie Colossal. Colossal stars Anne Hathaway, where she plays a woman who is going through a very rough time. She suffers from alcoholism, and we find out that she is connected to a giant monster halfway across the world, and so it tells the story of how she's connected in the past between her and one of her friends, and it's a very beautiful look at depression and also the use of alcohol to get through those times as well, and it's a really great commentary on that, and it's one that I can definitely recommend. Great performance from Anne Hathaway, and it's a movie that I wish more people had seen. It had a limited release and not too many people saw it, but it's a movie that I still think should be seen nonetheless. And number 13 would be Get Out. Get Out was a huge surprise for me. I went in not knowing what to expect. I don't like horror films in general, and so I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't know how I was going to react to this film. And after seeing it, not only is there the social commentary there, which is what most people are talking about, is the social commentary within the film, but it's just a really great film. It's entertaining. It's in a very dark way, but it's also just very well made. It's very well crafted, and it tells a very interesting story. And the only kind of horror films or scary films that I tend to like are ones that are more psychologically based, and this one truly masters that. And I cannot wait to see more movies come out from this director because it is truly fantastic. So if you have not seen that, I highly recommend that you do so. Alright, so coming in at number 12 will be the movie Split. So Split is another one of those horror films that I went in kind of with tempered expectations with. And Night Shyamalan has had a terrible run of movies lately. I have not seen a movie of his in a very long time because of that. And this movie was getting a lot of really good buzz around it, and apparently James McAvoy was excellent, so I finally went to see it, and man, this movie is incredible. If James McAvoy was in a dramatic film, if he was in a drama this year and gave that same performance, he would be nominated, but unfortunately, because he is in a horror film, he probably won't, but he definitely should. I mean, he plays, I think, almost 24 different personalities in this movie, and he does so flawlessly. Every single character that he plays, every single personality that he plays has their own unique quirks, and to do that as an actor is truly impressive overall. So again, Split, fantastic film. Coming in at number 11 is It Comes at Night. It Comes at Night, again, another film where it's been promoted as a horror film, it's been promoted as a scary jump scare movie, but it's not that at all. It's purely psychological, and that's the reason why I love it so much. It's a psychological thriller starring Joel Edgerton, and Joel Edgerton is really one of my favorite actors working in Hollywood right now. And again, it's a psychological thriller, and it's definitely worth checking out. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Coming in at number 10, so breaking into my top 10 movies of the year, at number 10 is Wind River. My goodness, this movie, Sheridan has had a huge success with films lately, especially as a writer. He wrote Sicario a couple years back. He also did Hell or High Water, two very brilliant films, and now he finally comes out as a director. He writes and directs Wind River, and my goodness, this is a near flawless movie. It tells a story that needs to be told. It focuses on this community on a Native American reservation, and it tells a story. And actually, at the end, there are statistics that come up about people who are missing within the Native American community, and it is just truly amazing that there are people who go missing and no one knows about it, and it's almost like no one even cares. So this is a movie telling a story about people that truly don't get any coverage whatsoever in the news or in any stories that you might ever read. And because of that, and also because of the fact that it's just a brilliant film with probably the best performance that Jeremy Renner's ever given in a film, it's a reason why you should probably go check this out. Because again, it's just so beautifully written and beautifully shot and so well acted. Highly recommend it if you have not seen it. Coming in at number 9 is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So this is from a director who is probably one of my favorite directors working in Hollywood right now. He is the master of the dark comedy. His first major film that he made was In Bruges, which is a movie that is easily within my top favorite films of all time. It's an excellent dark comedy with a really solid cast. He then made Seven Psychopaths, which was one I was less crazy about until I saw it for the second time and then just realized how brilliant it was. And then I saw this film, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, which not only has one of the longest names as far as movie titles go this year and probably within the last couple of years, but is also just fantastic. Frances McDormand, she deserves an Oscar for this performance. Once again, she shows that she is truly a master at her craft. She shows that she is truly a beautiful actress and can handle so many different roles, not just the comedic roles, but also the dramatic roles as well. And so this is another film that is truly an acting showcase. I think she deserves an Oscar. And I think that some of the other characters within it might actually even be up for supporting actors at the Oscars this year as well. Truly beautiful film, one of my favorites for sure, absolutely this year. And number 8 is Logan. So this is the Wolverine movie that everyone's been waiting for, the rated R Wolverine film that everyone's wanted, and it truly delivers in every single way. I remember seeing this movie, even just the trailer for this movie, the fact that it used a Johnny Cash song in such a great way, you could tell immediately that the tone would be different, and it is. And my goodness, one of the best superhero films of all time, because it does not play like a traditional superhero film. It plays more like a dramatic telling of a superhero character, and because of that, it makes it more real. It is reminiscent of The Dark Knight and the Dark Knight trilogy, where it took a superhero, it took a fictional character, and made them feel more real. Same thing with Logan. So even when his claws were coming out, it just still felt like a real person. Coming in at another 7 is another excellent film, but the biggest thing about this one is that I wish it had a different title. The title is one of the worst parts of the movie, and is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people didn't end up going to see it, because it has such a generic title, and it just doesn't grab anyone unless you see the trailer and you understand what the movie's about. That movie is Only the Brave, and it's a movie about the Granite Mountain hotshots, and it's probably one of the most thrilling movies I've ever seen, especially dealing with the fact that it's a bunch of people who take care of wildfires, are the ones who are on the front line, who try to burn out wildfires before they spread. And it tells a story about someone who we've never heard before. These are characters that we never see movies about, and so because of that, it's unique in that it tells this story that has never been told, and it does so well. The cast is fantastic. The effects, the fire effects especially, are beautiful, and it's one of the few movies this year that was able to truly get such an emotion out of me at the very end when everything happens, when everything goes down again. Not really spoiling anything, because when you see a trailer for this movie and when you see what the story's about, you know that something's going to happen. They don't base something off a true life story, usually in Hollywood, if it's a happy ending. And so because of that, when everything finally goes down, I have never felt so connected to characters to the point where I had such an emotional reaction when things happened the way that they did. And because of that, immediately after I saw it, I said, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. This is the one that had truly such an emotional response from me, and that is why it is at such a high number here on my top 15 of the year. Next, we have number 6, which is Thor Ragnarok. My goodness, I never thought that the Thor franchise would be saved. Thank goodness that Waititi directed this film and did so flawlessly. I mean, the fact that he made such obscure characters like Korg relevant and funny and entertaining to the point where people are wanting to see more of that character in future films is something that is very, very difficult to do. He took a movie franchise that seemed to have stalled, he reinvented it, and it is fantastic. I remember when this movie came out and another superhero film was out in theaters at the time, I told everyone, forget about that. Forget about the crap that was Justice League and go see Thor Ragnarok if you want to have a good time at the theater. Thor Ragnarok truly floored me as a superhero film, but also as a comedy. It is a brilliantly written comedy, and I really wish and hope that this means that we'll get more Thor films like this in the future, but also if Waititi can get another big franchise like this, especially some that are floundering, I could see him doing wonders with something like the Fantastic Four universe and any other franchise again that's suffering. Put it in his hands because my goodness, he knows what he's doing behind the camera, especially when it comes to making a comedy. All right, so now I'm in the top 5. So number 5 on my list is Baby Driver. Baby Driver is one where, again, as soon as the movie ended, I knew this would be one of my top movies of the year. The soundtrack is fantastic. The acting is fantastic. Again, everything that happened with Kevin Spacey aside, he gives a really great performance here, as well as Ansel Elgort as well. I mean, it is a truly fun movie. It is so well edited. It is so much fun. I would love to see this movie crack the top movies of the year at the Oscars this year. I don't know if it's going to happen, especially with the controversy around Kevin Spacey, but man, this is truly a brilliant film overall. If you've not seen it, I recommend it highly, and make sure you turn the volume up because my goodness, the soundtrack is truly phenomenal. All right, coming in at number 4, this is a movie that actually fluctuated in my list at a few different points because I wanted to put it at a higher point on my list because I just love this movie so much, and the main reason why is because I love the movie that it's based on. And so that movie at number 4 on my list is The Disaster Artist. My goodness, The Room is probably one of my all-time favorite films. It's a movie that I try and go see anytime that it's playing at a midnight near me in New Orleans. Britannia Movie Theater usually plays it, but it is so much fun, and The Disaster Artist captured that fun in every single way and extended the universe, extended the story even more so by going into the behind the scenes of what these characters were like, how they met, all the behind the scenes going on with The Room. And yes, there are these fantastic side-by-side remakes and reshots of some iconic scenes that are almost perfectly done, but it is so much fun. And man, James Franco, there may be a minute on screen where you're saying, hey, this is James Franco playing a character. It does not take very long, though, for you to see Tommy Wiseau up on the screen come to life in this way. So it is truly fantastic. I hope it gets nominated for an Oscar because Disaster Artist, easily one of my favorite films of the year, a movie that I can watch over and over and over again, just like The Room, and I cannot wait to finally get it when it comes out on Blu-ray. So that is my number 4. All right, coming in at number 3, this is a film where, again, with Disaster Artist, I was trying to push it up my list because I just loved it so much. But there was one other movie. So out of all the ones on my list, I mentioned that there were some that had a emotional response for me. None had such a powerful response all the way through like the movie at number 3 on my list, Wonder. Wonder is the family movie of the year. It is one that I think everyone should go see with their family. I know that it just got re-released in theaters for the holidays. If you have not seen this movie, please go out and see it. It is truly beautiful. It is not very often that we get a very positive, uplifting story from Hollywood. This is one of them. This tells a story of a kid named Augie who suffers from being born disfigured. His face is disfigured, and it tells the story that it tells the story of how he goes through life, how he's homeschooled, his transition from homeschool to regular school. But it's even more than that because it breaks down every single character in his life. It tells the story of his sister having to deal with her brother getting so much attention. It deals with the friends that he makes and the stories that the stories of what they're going through in their life. So it's actually a very complex story, telling all these individual stories and then having them all coincide in this one beautiful film. Wonder is easily one of my favorite films of the year. I could easily see this film, after seeing it again, climbing up even higher on this list, possibly even bumping out the top 2 movies on my list because it is just so beautifully made. It is just so wonderful in every single way. So Wonder, absolutely excellent film, and I highly recommend it. Coming at number 2, this is a movie I wanted to love. Denis Villeneuve is a beautiful, tremendous filmmaker, and I was so happy when I found out that he was put in charge of Blade Runner 2049, which is number 2 on my list, and he delivers. This is a truly epic sci-fi film, one of which we haven't seen probably in close to 20 years, and it is epic in every single way. I'm so sad that this movie did not make more money at the box office. I hope that it makes up some of its money in Blu-ray and DVD sales, because this is a movie that you have to see. This is a movie that's going to be studied for years to come, and it's going to be a movie that I feel like, just like the original, it's going to gain a very strong cult following, and hopefully that means that we'll get another Blade Runner film down the line within the same universe, possibly with even the same characters, because it's just that good. Blade Runner 2049, one of my favorite films of the year, technically beautiful, acting is superb, and it's a movie I hope gets a lot of love, especially when it comes to Oscar season. Alright, so those are my top movies of the year, which leaves us with just one more, the number one movie of the year. So the way that, before I get to my number one movie, I just want to break down how I got to this ranking. So I went through all the different movies listed on Wikipedia that came out in 2017. I then picked all the ones that I liked, so that's where my honorable mentions came from. All the movies that I really liked a lot, I put down on a list, and then I went down that list and made a determination of which movies do I feel deserve to be honorable mentions, and which deserve to be considered in my top 15. So the ones that I really, really liked, I chose those, and then I ended up with having several movies, and then had to break down my top 15. The way I ranked my top 15 was I gave a number for how much I liked it, and I gave a number for how much rewatchability factor I think it has. I added those numbers up, and then I just went from the top movie all the way down. If there were any ties, I looked at the two movies side by side and said which one did I like more, and that's how I decided the tiebreaker. So when all of that comes into play, with movies that are very well made and also rewatchability factor, my number one movie of the year is one that's probably not going to be in a lot of people's top 3, maybe not even on their top 10 or top 15 movies of the year, and that is John Wick 2. My goodness, John Wick is probably my modern day, it's probably my modern day favorite film series going on right now. I cannot wait for Chapter 3 to come out in a couple years. I mean, Keanu Reeves has had a resurgence in his career because of this film. It is action-packed from start to finish. The story is actually very interesting. The world that it builds is fascinating. I cannot wait to learn more about it, and that is why it got such a high rating as far as how much I like the movie. But because it's so much fun, I could watch this movie almost every single day. And so because of that, it actually got my highest ranking as far as rewatchability is concerned, and that's the reason why it ended up being my top movie of the year. So number one movie of the year, John Wick Chapter 2 or John Wick 2. Please go see it if you haven't. If you've not seen Chapter 1, watch that first, because that's another movie where I had a lot of friends that kept talking about it when Oscar season came around that year. I hadn't seen it, and it was funny because I was talking about all the movies like Birdman and all these other movies that were going on at the time, and they said, no dude, those have nothing on John Wick. And sure enough, when I finally watched it, they were absolutely right. It was so much fun to watch, and John Wick 2 was just as fun, if not even more fun and more crazy than that. So John Wick 2 is my number one movie of the year, and one that I highly recommend that you all go see. Alright, so finishing up my podcast, I want to do a segment that I'm going to bring in every single time that I do an episode, and that segment is called Movie of the Week. Now, in the Movie of the Week section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down one of the various films that I've seen within the past week or 2 weeks, depending on how often I do this podcast, and I'm going to choose my favorite of the films that I've seen and going to talk about it for a little bit. So for this week, my Movie of the Week is the 1946 classic, It's a Wonderful Life. This is a movie that I adore. This is a movie that I see every single time that Christmas comes around, every single year. And this is a movie that actually came late to. This is a movie that I did not see until I was in my early 20s, and now in my late 20s. So again, something that came to me only recently. And ever since I saw it, I fell in love with this film. The character of George Bailey, the character of Clarence are classic, are characters that everyone can just fall in love with, and this is just a movie that's just excellent in every single way. The acting is brilliant. James Stewart is just a class act, and I'm reminded every single time I watch this movie how much I love him as an actor, and it makes me want to see even more of the films that he's in because he's just so brilliant in every single one of them. And it's truly the pinnacle of Christmas films. I know a lot of people love Die Hard as a Christmas movie, and I know a lot of other people like Elf as a recent film to watch during Christmas. But for me, every single year, I have to watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's not only one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, it's also one of my all-time favorite films as well. It's a movie that constantly jumps up and down between slots 1 and 3 of my top favorite films of all time. And it's a movie that if you haven't seen, I highly recommend that you go see it. It's almost a movie that you have to see at some point in your life because it truly is that brilliant. So that was my movie of the week, and it's also a wrap for my first episode of the Odin's Movie Blog podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and please stay tuned for more.